I spent all my money on an abandoned farm in a Polish village. I was told to look for a yellow house with a huge oak in the corner or the yard. This must be it. I wouldn't call this yellow though, but we do have an oak in the corner.
I opened the gate. It is definitely the right spot. I was told that this farm was unoccupied for at least 5 years, and all of these bushes definitely show that. The house is in decent shape though. For 50,000 euros we got this whole farm, and these 2 fields, that had wheat planted in them however many years ago. But we have no time to waste, so I ran inside real quick, changed my clothes, moved our Volkswagen Golf behind the farm. Just before coming out here, I also bought some hand tools, like this pushable seeder and cultivator, and also splurged on this parkside lawnmower from Lidl. It cost like 45 bucks. And as a first job, I decided to cut all the grass and bushes around the farm to see the real situation of this investment of ours. In just a couple of hours, it went from a horror farm to something somewhat livable. But more importantly, we got a clear image of it now. We have our house right here in the front, a small greenhouse right next to it, a chicken coop, a shed with a basic workshop if we need to do some basic repairs, a couple of sheds, a tiny cow shed. Lastly, that big building in the back is a straw storage with a silo to the side of it. While cutting the grass, I also found an axe and a wheelbarrow in one of the sheds, but we need to get some cash. So I climbed into our little Golf, parked the trailer in one of the sheds, and went to the local market to see if anyone needs a helping hand on their farm. We have to start somewhere after all. There were a bunch of people in the market, and many contracts for us to choose from. We are just limited by our lack of equipment. We can only do cultivating, sowing, and grass cutting. I decided to first help out Katarzyna Szeptucha with green bean sowing, loaded the seeds she gave me onto the roof rack, went back to the farm, reattached the trailer, loaded the seeder into it, went to the field, loaded the seeds into the planter, and started planting. It will take some time to finish, but we have to do what we have to do to survive. The job took about 2 hours to complete, but we made our first hard-earned 592 euros. We still have some time until sunset, so I took up another job from Michal Zgnilizna to cut grass on one of his fields. Unloaded the seeder in the yard, loaded in the mower, got to the field, and started cutting it all. The field is quite large, but we should be able to finish it today. It took till about 8 PM, but we managed to finish the job. Collected the 1,645 euro check, loaded the mower back into the trailer, got back to the farm, and went inside to get some rest. But at 8 AM, I was already on my way to the market to get some supplies. Spent 300 euros on a small liquid barrel, spent 315 euros on 5 bags of seeds, and lastly, spent 200 euros on this little forage wagon, loaded it all into the trailer, and went back to the farm. We need to collect all this grass from the ground and lay some gravel over to make a nice little yard for ourselves. I first recut all the grass to make it more even, collected all the grass using our new forage wagon, and spent about 900 euros on some gravel to make this place more livable. It is starting to look more and more like home. We need to fix up our fields next. Probably a good idea to replenish the soil before we try and actually grow some crops out here. So I cultivated the fields first, then planted oilseed radish into them to make sure the soil is all right. We also have quite a few rocks in the fields, but no way to collect them right now. I parked the seeder in one of the sheds, unloaded the water barrel from the roof rack of the Golf, filled it up with water from the garden well, and watered the crops in the greenhouse. This little greenhouse will grow a huge variety of crops, ranging from chili peppers to tomatoes. Everything on the farm is taken care of. We can go do some contracting jobs. I jumped back into the Golf, drove to the market, picked up a job from Piotr to clear deadwood from his forest, got back home real quick, picked up the axe from the shed, carefully manoeuvred into Piotr's forest. All we need to do is cut these dead trees and take them to the lumberyard. We get paid for cutting them. All the money we get from the lumberyard is for us to keep as well. So I started chopping them all down. Chopped them into smaller pieces, transported them to the market. They were worth way less than I hoped. We got just 183 euros for a full trailer, and those were the thickest pieces. I kept going back and forth, and after the last load, we increased our bank balance by about 500 euros, plus got the 1,350 euros for the job itself. I also cultivated a field for Adam that day for 1,197 euros, seeded a field with carrots for Mikhail for 1,810 euros, and also cut some grass for Mikhail for 392 euros. By the time I got back home, it was like 10 PM, but we increased our bank balance to 5,360 euros, so I went inside to get some rest. In the morning, as a first thing, I went out to check up on the radishes.
They are already out of the ground. Maybe we might even be able to plant some winter wheat this year. It would be nice to get some kind of meadow field so we could start raising some cattle as well. The only field we can afford is this one for 3,040 euros.
So I hopped into the Golf and went to check it out. I definitely saw some bigger fields, but we could feed a couple of cattle out of it. I decided not to buy it and went to the market to try and get our first tractor. We have quite a few options to choose from, like this Fendt F25 for 1,200 euros, this Ursus C330 for 3,250 euros, or this old T25 for 2,500 euros. It is a very hard decision. But in the end, I ended up buying the Ursus for 3,250 euros, since it had the most powerful engine, coming at a whopping 31 horsepower. I also spent 640 euros on a little cultivator.
Just look at this thing. It's just magnificent. It's just perfect for the type of work we do around here.
But there are no contracts for cultivating right now. So to test out the new tractor, I picked up this rolling job from Katarzyna. Spent 800 euros on this 350 kilogram roller. First brought the cultivator back to the farm, got back to the market, attached the roller, got to the field, and started rolling the field for Miss Katarzyna. This little Ursus is pulling that huge piece of metal through the field like it's nothing. It took just 20 minutes or so to finish the whole field, collected the 645 euro check from her, but Piotr saw me working the field and wanted his field rolled too. His field is literally on the opposite side of the road. Also did some grass cutting for him for 1,645 euros, and cleared some deadwood for 2,025 euros. By the time I got back home, it was already a bit past 6 PM, and we increased our balance to almost 6 grand. I decided to buy some animals, ran to the animal dealer who lives literally on the opposite side of the road from us, bought 50 6-month-old chickens for 50 euros per head, and spent 9 euros on a rooster, ran back.
Aren't they supposed to be inside the shed? Let's just open all the doors so they can get back inside when the sun goes down.
I don't know how or where, but apparently we can keep up to 150 chickens out here. The only problem is food. I jumped into the Golf, got to the market, spent 1,500 euros on 20 bags of chicken food, loaded it into the trailer, brought it back, and loaded it all into the feeding pans. Then watered all the veggies in the greenhouse, and went back to the comfy bed to wait for the morning to come. In the morning, I was pleasantly surprised as the chickens laid some eggs for us already. All the radishes are fully grown as well. We just need to cultivate them over, and we can start planting. We can still plant both winter barley and winter wheat. I just first loaded all the eggs into the trailer, and went to the store to see how much they are actually worth. For 68 eggs, we got 120 euros. I got back to the farm, jumped into our beloved Ursus, attached the cultivator, and cultivated both of our fields to prepare them for seeding. These oilseed radishes are just fabulous. You can't really harvest them, but after they grow, you just mix them up into the soil and they act like a natural fertilizer. I finished cultivating, parked the cultivator back in the yard, and went to the market to work out some kind of deal on a seeder. I first sold off our old pushable cultivator and seeder for a few $100, and bought the only seeder we could afford, which is this Agromet S043 for 1,650 euros. Attached it, carefully manoeuvred it out of the market, filled it up with some seeds that we had on the farm, and started planting some winter barley. To hedge the risks, I planted one field with barley and the other one with wheat, rolled the ground, Then cut all the grass around the farm to make it nice and clean. We should probably do something with this pile of grass we have. I jumped into the Golf, got to the market, spent 26 euros on a shovel, got back to the farm, and started loading all the grass into the trailer. The local market bought all of this grass for 140 euros per trailer. After a couple of hours of work, the farm looked a lot cleaner, and we were a few hundred euros richer. While at the market, I also picked up some contracting work. It is planting time, so I picked up some rolling jobs for Piotr. We need to roll 3 of his fields. Made something like 2,000 euros from all of these rolling jobs, but Piotr mentioned to me that he also needs someone to do hoeing for him. We have 5 different contracts to do hoeing for all the village farmers. I picked up all of them. Spent 1,200 euros on this strange looking device that somehow removes the small weeds from the crop. Attached it, and started weeding all of the fields. By the time I came home, it was almost midnight, but we are over 5,000 euros richer, parked the tractor, and went inside to get some rest. First thing in the morning, I went out to check up on the crops we planted yesterday. They are growing nicely, we just need to remove all the weeds before they get too big. I quickly watered the crops in the greenhouse, then hopped back into the tractor, attached the weeder, and removed all the weeds from both of our fields. Then went out to do some contracting work again. They think, oh, what a nice neighbour, he is helping us out when we need it. Oh, if only they knew about my real intentions. I will buy all of these lands one day, and they will have no other option but to work for me then. I first did some cultivating work, then did some planting. Spent 1,350 euros on this beautiful 8-metre working width sprayer, and 1,200 euros on this old Lizard Z034 grass mower. Picked up a bunch of fertilising jobs, attached our new sprayer to the back, bought a couple of barrels of liquid fertiliser for 400 euros a piece, filled up the sprayer, did a bunch of spraying jobs, cut some grass for Piotr, came back home only when it got pitch black outside, but we increased the bank balance to a bit over 13,000. In the morning, we had a huge problem on our hands. We need to find something to do over the winter. All the crops are taken care of, chickens still have plenty of food, and there is absolutely no contract work available during the winter. There are a few small forests available in the nearby lands, but they are all quite expensive. The only semi-forest we could afford is this piece of land that's right next to our current field. I paid 9,198 euros for almost a third of a hectare. It is a tiny grass field with some pines growing on the side, but selling wood as raw material is a very bad idea. We should process it. Unfortunately, all the wood processing factories are just way out of our league, so I spent 1,800 euros on a simple firewood splitting station, and spent 1,000 euros on a nice brand new steel chainsaw. Jumped into the Golf, attached the only trailer we have to the back of it, got to our new field, which was only like 300 metres away, and started cutting all the trees down. Chopped them into nice 1 metre long pieces, brought it all back to the yard, and started chopping them all into firewood. I kept chopping the wood until the middle of February. It is a perfect time to sell it all, as the prices are at an all-time high. 1,120 euros per 1,000 kilograms. We just need to find a way to take them to the market, as each of them weighs over half a ton. So I hopped into the Golf and went to the market to try and ask for some help. I couldn't afford any of the machines they have for sale, but they were nice enough to lend me this forklift they use to do work around the market. We just need to bring it back before 3 PM, as they have some supplies coming in. So I quickly got back to the farm and started loading all the firewood into the car trailer. Managed to fit just 3 boxes into the trailer, as the Golf is not able to pull any more. But 3 boxes of firewood sold at the market for 3,395 euros. So I kept loading it in and taking it to the market. By the time I delivered the last boxes of firewood and the pallet of eggs, it was already 2:30 PM, but we made almost 24 grand from all the firewood and eggs. I brought back the forklift, bought some chicken food, loaded it into the trailer, went back home, fed the chickens, and went inside to wait for some nicer weather. By the time all the snow melted and it got nice and warm, it was already April. Went out to check up on our fields first. They are all growing nicely. We just need to spray some fertilizer over them. The chickens laid some eggs for us. They are just almost out of food though. We also finally grew some vegetables. I watered the greenhouse, then jumped into the Golf and went to the market to buy some kind of loader to sell off all the vegetables. But all the forklifts are way out of our budget. So I just spent €500 on this pallet fork and spent €3,500 on this car trailer with a ramp in the back. Attached it, loaded the pallet fork into the new trailer, sold the old trailer back to the dealer, went back to the farm and started picking them all up. But the ramp proved to be too steep for us to push the pallets on it. The loader is only good for moving stuff around on flat ground. So I moved all the pallets to a more open area, jumped into the Ursus, got to the market, spent €450 on this fork that can be attached to the back hydraulics of a tractor, attached it to the back, tried to pick up 2 pallets at a time, but it proved to be too heavy for our little Ursus. And the tractor is too wide to get up on the trailer as well. So I just sold all the vegetables 1 pallet at a time. Firstly, the pallet of tomatoes sold for €1,240. The pallet of strawberries sold for €1,104. Chili sold for another €1,093. It took a couple of hours of driving back and forth, but we got something like €8,000 for all the vegetables. Plus, sold all the eggs for another €618. While at the store, I also bought a pallet of chicken feed for €1,500, picked it up, got back to the farm, loaded it all into the feeding pans, and went out to do some shopping. Firstly, bought some new land, spent $12,000 on field 16, and another $13,000 on field 18. Shopping is done, we are out of money. But we now have this field 18 that has triticale growing in it, and field 16 has summer wheat in it with a bunch of random weeds as well. So I ran back, jumped into the tractor, attached the sprayer, sprayed some fertilizer over all of the fields first, and then sprayed some herbicide over field 16. Everything on the farm is taken care of, except for one thing. We need to cut down, or at least trim, all of these bushes that grow on the side of our grass field before we get fined for neglect. So I ran back, picked up the chainsaw, put some proper work clothes on, brought the trailer to the field, and started cutting them all down. Looks way nicer without half of the field being taken over by bushes. I loaded all the logs onto the trailer and took it to the market. We probably won't get much for these logs, but we need to get a plough though, to plant some proper grass on that field. €1,204? That's actually really good. Maybe we can afford something simple from the store. We have quite a few options, but most of them are just too big for the Ursus. I ended up buying this Unia Grudziad's U021 plough for €650. Brought it back, attached it, and started ploughing the whole field to prepare for some proper grass planting. The ploughed rows aren't the straightest, but it is what it is. Then cultivated the new field. In the morning, planted the whole field with grass and sprayed it with some liquid fertilizer to help it grow faster. We got a bit of a problem on our hands. In a month or two, all of these crops will be ready to harvest. And you know what we don't have? A bloody combine harvester. And renting one in the midst of harvest season is just a nightmare. We don't need any of the big machines, but even then they cost like at least $10,000. So I picked up any contracting work I could get my hands on, did a bunch of hoeing jobs first, then some fertilizer spraying jobs, also cut some grass for Piotr. But June quickly rolled in and all the winter barley is ready for harvest. The triticale and winter wheat are still a bit off, but should be ready in another day or so. So I jumped back into the tractor, picked up all the eggs that our chickens have laid, and went to the market to try and buy some kind of combine harvester. Got €1,675 extra for all the eggs, and started looking for a harvester. We have quite a few options, to be fair. Firstly, we have this John Deere 45 for €7,500. Then we have this Massey Ferguson 87 for €8,000 that comes with the header included in the price. And lastly, We have this Massey 310 for €10,500, plus we will need to pay extra for the header. It is an insanely tough choice. I ended up getting the Massey Ferguson 87 for €8,000, as it was the cheapest option. Plus, spent €3,400 on a grain trailer, jumped into our new combine harvester, got back to the farm, and started the harvest. The yield is insane though. After harvesting just half of the field, we have a full bunker. Unloaded it all into the trailer, and continued on with the harvest. It took just a couple of hours or so to finish the whole field. Unloaded the last few grains into the trailer, parked the combine in the middle of the yard for now, as we will need it tomorrow anyways. In total, we harvested 2,441 litres of winter barley, but I immediately loaded it all into the chicken feeding pans. The chickens reproduced a couple of times. We have a full coop already. We still have some time before all the other crops are ready for harvest, so I quickly watered the greenhouse and went out to try and catch some fish in the local lake. I'm not sure if there's actually anything here, but we'll find out. All I caught was this massive trout worth €400, another trout worth €200, moved to the other side of the pond, and in the late evening caught one more trout worth €100. But I went back home to get some rest, so we would feel refreshed for all the work tomorrow. To my surprise, only wheat is ready for harvest. Triticale is still a bit off, but we have rain forecasted for around 10 AM. So I quickly hopped into the combine harvester and started the wheat harvest. The field is very small. It only took like an hour to harvest. Parked the combine in the shed to cover it from potential rain, filled up the chicken coop to the brim, and took the rest to the market. Got almost €300 for it. We need to do something with all of this straw. Unfortunately, even the smallest square balers require way more power to work than our Ursus has. We will have to do it by hand. Spent €200 on this manual baler, brought it back, and started baling it all. By the time I finished, it was already raining a bit, but we made 37 bales. I brought the Golf with the trailer to the field and started loading all the bales onto it. Sold the first load for €1,126, and the rest sold for another €1,192. The grass field that we planted a couple of months ago is growing really nicely, but it still needs some more time. So I jumped into the tractor, attached the cultivator, and started preparing the harvested fields for the next seeding. Then went off to do some cultivating for the neighbours. Just look at this huge list of contracts we've done today. Went from 5,000 in the bank to over 18,000. Got back to the farm and went inside to get some rest. First thing in the morning, I went out to check up on all of the fields. All the triticale is ripe and ready for the chop. All the summer wheat as well. The grass struggles to grow for some reason though. It is supposed to be as tall as this neighbour's field. Maybe some fertiliser could help out. I jumped into the tractor, loaded some liquid fertiliser, and spread the whole field with it. Parked the sprayer back in the shed, as we won't need it anymore this year. Moved the grain trailer near the field, hopped into the combine, and started the long-awaited harvest. The combine is the perfect size for our farm. It took like 3 hours to harvest both of the fields. Unloaded the last few grains into the silo. We harvested 2,160 litres of triticale and 1,527 litres of wheat. I baled all the straw next. Sold it all at the store for a few extra grand, and cultivated all the fields. The yields were almost perfect this year, but we can do better. We just need to collect all the stones and spread some lime over all of the fields. So I jumped into the Golf and went to the dealership to try and get some machinery. Spent €1,000 on this homemade spreader, bought 4 pallets of lime for €450 each, but the stone pickers are insanely expensive and need a way more powerful tractor to pull them. I loaded all the pallets into the trailer using the market's forklift, brought all the supplies back, spread all the fields with some lime, then with some solid fertiliser. But that's it from me for today. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment on what you want to see next. See you in the next one!